Well, in our capability statements, we put what needs to be put in there because you're one of, just like in interviewing for a job, you're going to be one of many that are looking for to win that contract. And I want to say this to you, it's not if you're going to win, it's just when. It's a matter of staying in the game long enough to present yourself, learning to go after the low-hanging fruit, which is city and state and local bids first. I always teach people that in government training, and even working with Mark, he's reiterated that with me, that it's not if you're going to win, it's when you're going to win, because you will win. When you become someone's partner, when you become the sub, when you learn to work the business, when you stay in the game long enough. So this is, my name is Cynthia Harper. I've been in this business now for quite a while. I came in and I went out, and worst mistake I ever did was to leave out. And that was reiterated to me by, some of you might know David Stewart. He's the owner of Worldwide Technology, probably one of the largest government contracting agencies in the world, and does more business with Bank of America and Cisco and some of these other companies than any companies in the world. So he told me, stay, Cynthia, stay. Don't get angry when you don't win. Stay. Oh, okay. Greg says, I've been trying to partner with WWT for years. Greg, I have some contacts there, but they're older, so I'm not certain if they'll be pertinent for you or not. But Mr. Stewart gave me a call back and invited me in for a meeting via telephone at the time. And he said, stay, Cynthia. You didn't win this one, but you might win the next one. Or at least they know you know how to team. And so I'd like to say to you all, don't quit, because it's not always easy. So much for that. Let's talk about creating an award-winning capability statement. The next slide, Mark.
Thank you, Cynthia. Here we go.
You're welcome. So what is a capability statement? As I said to you, it's a document that represents your company, your business competencies. Its purpose to provide specific information that will convince potential customers to do business with you. It's your business profile. It is the statements, the codes. It's who you are, the executive summary that sum totals what you do. So it's a document. It's a simple one-page document in most cases. That's what a capability statement is. So let me tell you what it's not. You know, if you, like me, you came out of corporate America. I worked for Delta and I worked for Kaiser. And as an IT recruiter, I did a lot of work with other major companies like BellSouth.net and, you know, Bell South and Norrell. Y'all, I'm aging myself. I'm talking about these companies that some of them don't even exist anymore, but it's not what you call a brochure. It's not a fancy flip document. It's not something, a whiteboard. It's nothing like that. It's a one-page document, literally, that will represent who you are. The colors and scheme and all of that's important, but they don't have time as a contracting officer to note all those things that we would place inside of a brochure. So that's what it's not. It's not the fanciest brochure to be designed in town. Mark, can you speak to the time and how pertinent it is for us to have the right capability statement for the right contracting officer?
Oh, definitely. You know, that's very important, is to make sure that the information that's on that page, that one-page document, is what they're looking for at that time. And, you know, sometimes you might even have, if you have multiple business aspects, you might have multiple capability statements too. Always like to you know, encourage that. It's not always that you want to have, you see here, you got some of these are 6-7 page forms. That's not what a capability statement is. It's got to really speak to that audience at that moment with all the appropriate language.
Great. Michelle, thank you so much for putting the information in there about your company. It's real important when you're in forums like this that you list who you are. You never know who your next partner might be. So why do you need a capability statement? Well, it speaks to the language of the government. It lets them know you understand their structure. You will use acronyms and you will use certain letters and words in your capability statement that will draw that certain said agency to your document. So it speaks their language. When you go to China, you speak the language if you're fortunate enough to do so. When you are in America, you speak a certain language. It is the language. It is the common business vocabulary for that environment. So that's why you need one. They will understand that you understand the language that it takes to do business, to procure a bid with them. The difference in a bid versus a grant. It's not a grant, but it's a bid. So that's why we need great capability statements.
You know, we have a word cloud here, and I actually like that tool. You can run those pretty simply, pretty quickly on the internet. But taking your own capability statement and run that word cloud and make sure that main word really speaks to who your company is and that you understand that. And one thing I always do when I group we're up to about 30 plus, by the end of the session, maybe as many as 40 or 50. I always like to tell people about my company in a session like this, and you can oftentimes just drop your capability statement if you have one in the chat box. And the likelihood of you being able to partner with someone, we're starting to get to the statistics to make that possible. So it's always good to do that, but making sure that that language really speaks to your company is so important.
Really speaks to your company. So the benefits of a capability statement, it opens doors. You know, it's easy to forward. It's a one pager. It's a downloadable document that's generally, it should be attached to your web page. You should have it where you carry it with you. It's downloadable. You have it to present. It could serve as your business card if need be. It creates access to start building relationships. And the government, you know, the government buyers, they believe in your capability statements. So the benefits of it is that it's something that represents you. It speaks to their language. It's a one pager. You can use them in many different scenarios, many different scenarios.
You know, Cynthia, I'm a big believer in using technology to your benefit. You know, nowadays, you know, whenever I was new in business cards are so important. And you always carry, they said, remember I had this big old pocket full of business cards I would carry. Now you can take that business card, you know, use a little QR code, put that QR code on the business card, and it drives back to your capability statement. Your capability statement drives back to interactive videos. You want to carry that contracting officer, you know, through your business and help them understand it and to keep their attention. It's just a way to really use technology.
That's good. That's good. And we are in the era of technology, Mark. So you're right. It is driven by technology. So having that QR code is very important. So what is it if you don't have a capability statement? Well, it actually can slam doors in your face. If you're at an industry day and you don't have a capability statement or the QR code to be able to say that you understand, it might mean that you don't understand the process of doing business with the federal government. It proves that you don't understand how the federal space is working and that you're really not serious. You haven't made the investment in your company. There are some things that small businesses need to make sure that they do, and that is to present themselves well when they meet KOs, PMs, just other large businesses, small businesses who are your potential partners. So bad or no capability statement could mean something, it could be a slam in the door in your face. So we know that there are different versions of capability statements because being in the business so long, different statements require, different bids require different capability statements. Now, for the most part, I'm a firm believer in the one-page document. I truly am. But there are times when there are certain statements needs to be recreated, regenerated for certain bids. So make sure that when you do create your generic one, and that you have the ability to go back in and make some changes, because certain bids might ask for just certain information. They might just ask for requests for information, not necessarily they're looking for you to bid on it. They're just requesting information about your company. At this point, you can go in and detail some information regarding who you are, what you do, and how you do it that maybe was not included in the previous capability statement. Mark, talk about the different versions and how that works.
Well, you know, you have already using some acronyms here, and acronyms are so important because that really does tell government officials that you know that you can speak their language. But a request for information, There, oftentimes we'll see these, and we'll see these a lot of times on an emergency basis. I remember when COVID first started, how important having that capability statement was, and that you were ready to go, and that you were ready to step in there and provide particular services or supplies that governments were desperately seeking. I use that word desperately because that's the way it was at the moment. And you see the exact same thing, and more traditionally in an emergency basis when you have hurricanes, or you have the fires out west, or you have earthquake, or even tornadoes, where the more traditional disaster response, where you have to step in there. Having a capability statement specifically for your disaster response is helpful. And then you have the more traditional one, and so being able to interchange that, it will help you, I think, as you move forward. And with today's technology, you can do that very quickly and have those right there on your desktop. And so in a session like this, I might have a more general capability statement that I just stick in the chat box. But if I'm called to a meeting where they're looking for someone to respond to a hurricane on the Georgia coast, well, then I might have a different one that I have that shows my ability to step in there and move quickly.
Yeah. And I want to say to Betty Mall, she's a front-end with Front-End Graphics Inc. That's a perfect company that would help you. And though we create capability statements, I just want to say to Betty, once you learn how to create capability statements, a company like that, Betty would be able to help you create something very aesthetically pleasing with all of your data in it. This is how you partner with people to create what you need. So just to give Betty a little plug here.
Yeah, Cynthia, Betty knows what she's doing. She's already dropped in. She's a certified WBE. She's also a woman on small business, full service. These are the keywords. These are that language that we talked about earlier, and dropping that in there in these chats is so important.
Absolutely, it's very important. So then sometimes there's a capability statement that, it just targets something that's general. It's kind of what Mark was talking about. And then there's a sources sought. I love it when Mark mentioned disaster recovery. There are times, in particular with FEMA, I advise all of you all to get registered with FEMA and get them your capability statement, because there were bids that you don't have to even bid for with FEMA. They're just passing out because of the financial threshold. It doesn't require for you to bid on those. And that's good money, really good money to keep you going. I think one of the things that we don't do well in the government business is we want the $1 million contract overnight. But what about renting 20 to 100,000, 150,000 a month, every other month? Partnering, winning that kind of money, because you have a capability statement for FEMA or for some disaster recovery agency that you don't have to bid on. They just basically will assign that to you. So I want us to remember that. Let's go after the small things, then the big things will come.
I'm glad you mentioned the small contracts, Cynthia. That's what I like to do. Right now I have 4 active contracts that are under 25,000, which is the limit for most governments. So they've got my capability statement, they know my business, and they just pick up the phone and call me. And so I haven't had to bid on them, I haven't had to do the work, and I've just chalked that up to experience. And so there's a nice.
So Michelle is asking, what is the website for FEMA contract? Do we go through sam.gov? Well, you have to be registered in SAMS to do business in the federal space anyway. But FEMA does have an individual site, and you need to get involved. And if you have an SBA grant writer or representative, let them help you get involved with FEMA. Please do so so we can be a part of simplified acquisitions. It's so important to look at simplified acquisitions, and it's really important to note that FEMA and these other agencies are there. So let's talk about the codes that are relative. Hi, Rod.
Cynthia,
how are you?
Let me add something to that, because I'm working with our state one here, but FEMA is, of course, the federal emergency management agency, and they're going to have arms in every single state. In Georgia, it's like the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. And so whenever there's an emergency, and just to emphasize, everyone is in the emergency business. Okay, whenever they go in there and they have to act quickly, they're looking at all sectors. So be prepared to work in that space. But in your state, there's going to be an emergency management agency, and you probably can search the next name of your state: Georgia EMA, or Alabama emergency management, or Texas emergency management, or Illinois, anywhere in the country. And on their page, they want to have a quick spot for you to see what they need when there's an emergency that happens. So the first place you go whenever you hear this emergency, go to that state agency. And even though they're funded by the federal government, they're often issued by the state agency to bid. And that's where they have the flexibility just to hire you on the spot. Specifically, if you're registered in the disaster response registry at sam.gov. Okay, SAM governs the federal government, does not govern state or local unless the federal dollars touch it. Okay,
Exactly.
so you don't mix up your registrations either.
Yeah,
Sorry
and I'm glad you cleared that, Mark. And I tell people, let's look at the local first. Get to know who's spending and buying locally. You become a vendor for local, state government, city. It's real important. Seriously, county. There's lots of money that people are letting other contractors come in and get because they're looking for the major deals. So your codes are important, your NACE codes, your PSC codes, your SIC codes, your NIGB codes. All these are codes that are listed on your capability statement. You can't bid on a contract without having the right codes listed on your capability statement. Someone asked about the SAM document. SAM's not a document, as Mark said. SAM is a federal registration for federal contractors. So you register in SAMs if you're doing business in the federal market, but you can register and do with local and state government right from online. And it's a very easy process. You don't need to pay anyone to do that, to get registered in that area.
And
so these are codes.
I'll also point out that we do a class on it's Gov School Focus, and the next one is next Monday. It's talk specifically about registrations. Your SAM registration is not complicated. I bet one of the calls I regret getting at Gov Directions are ones that come to us and said, I just paid somebody $3,000 to register me in SAM. You don't get anything out of it. By the time you give them the information, you've already registered yourself. It's that simple. It's not a difficult process. And the federal government will reach out to you if there's an issue. Make sure it's a .gov address, .gov when they do. And it's just frustrating to see so many people lose money for no purpose when they first start out. In state and local government, it's just remember when you're registering, it's really just an accounts payable system. You're getting prepared. You're getting prepared to pay you. It's not going to get you a contract. Okay,
That's
you
right.
got to be registered there first, and then you got to go out and find and win the contract, and then you can get paid.
Build the relationships.
Building relationships.
You got to build a relationship. So know your codes. Understand if your code is 541613. Understand what you do by the codes that you've listed. But you're absolutely right, Mark. We don't let anybody charge you to register in SAMs. It's just a matter of an hour of your time putting in your information. So that's what we're talking about, the codes.
Talk about the codes. Yeah, here it is. Codes are important. Go ahead.
Codes are important. Understand even with 8A stars, I mean, with GSA schedule and MATOC and IDIQ, understand all these things as you're learning and growing. And this is why I like the class that Mark is doing on Monday. We should all be in attendance in this class, honestly, because it will help us move forward to contracts that are available, how to get registered, when to get available, how to get involved with certain agencies is really important.
And things are always changing. And I use this PowerPoint here from February at the last minute, but it says DUNS number. Now, of course, we have the unique identifying number. Right.
Unique
identifying. The federal government
right.
will assign you. I want to mention that. But these codes here, NAICS code is the North American Industry Classification System. That's very important at the federal level, not the state and local government level, only at the federal. The NIGP, the National Institute for Governmental Purchasing, important at the state and local government level. And now, of course, we a lot more using the United Nations product codes. So these are codes, as you have time, learn that NAICS code, learn the NIGP code. Rest of them, get familiar with them. Don't focus so much on them. Gov Directions, what we do is we actually crosswalk every single bid into the industry you serve because there's just so many coding systems. It's a hodgepodge of coding systems out there. But the most important, that NAICS, the NAICS code, is because of the set-aside requirements. And if you're not assigned to that and you're seeking set-aside, so you're not going to be able to bid on those at that time. Okay.
And let me say this before we switch, you can leave it there, Mark, on the NAICS codes. One of the good things that they're doing now, they're listing, when you're searching for your NAICS codes, they will list the top companies in that NAICS code who the federal government has done business with. Those are your potential partners. You could be their subs as they are getting these multi-million-dollar contracts. One of the good things that NACE codes are doing now, they allow you to identify the companies that are winning those big contracts. So make those people your friend. You use your capability statement, forward it to them and let them know you're willing, as they say, just take the little crumbs from their table, because their crumbs could be really big for you and I as small businesses.
Yeah, one thing you said, where does one find this listing? At Gov Directions, we actually place the NAICS code on every single listing. And I would point out that we have the federal government as well as state and local government. Okay, and then every day we list all the awards. Oftentimes these companies don't even know they've won it when the award is issued. It's the first place it's announced. And so you can actually, at that point in those, they're marked with a keyword award, and then the NAICS code is there, but you can contact them if you get a NAICS code match, and you can potentially serve as a subcontractor. And even if you aren't able to on this particular one, these are the companies that are winning. And they're winning over and over again.
Over and over again.
The way to
Tiffany,
get into federal government business is to go in and partner. Okay?
Just go in and partner. That's the best way. Tiffany, you're absolutely right. You started a few months ago and you received your final cage assignment. So you see, it wasn't that complicated for you. Thank you. I'm glad that you said that you completed it yourself. You completed it yourself. All right, let's go to the next. Let's talk about the codes. So we want you to have a good capability statement, right? So there are 6 codes within the capability statement. We can go to the next one, Mark.
Okay.
That's important. You know, the capability statement has codes, your core competencies, the company data, corporate expertise and differentiators, clients and customers, which is pretty much your past experience, and your contact information. When you create this, if you create it yourself, if you send it out, and there's so many ways that you can actually there are some people who are so creative, they can create their own capability statement. There are lots of samples and examples. Mark has some, we've created quite a bit, but you can actually do this yourself as well. But make sure these codes are registered. You know, your core competencies, your company data, your corporate expertise and what differentiates you, your customers and your client contact. Make sure those 6 C's of a capability statement is something they can glance at right away. So let's talk about the core competency. You want to say something, Mark? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. The core competencies.
Let's talk about that.
As we're changing slides, if somebody asked about, I'll just remind, because everybody's continuing to come in the room. This is a recorded version. This is Dr. Cynthia Harper. She's with us today. She's an expert at capability statements. She has her contact information, and we'll share it again in the chat box. The recorded version will be available to you and our YouTube channel just almost immediately after this class.
Absolutely. And I'm only expert at this because Mark gave me an opportunity. So sometimes when you're called upon to learn something or to do something, you have to become the SME in it. That's what you all are. The federal government is looking for people just like you. You're the subject matter expert. So the core competencies, who are you? What is your company? You know, what service and product are you offering? What is it that you are the subject matter expert in? That's what your core is. This doesn't have to be a long narrative and doesn't have to be all this fancy stuff, but you need to be able to identify your elevator pitch in such a way as a core competency that it speaks loud and proud. And when they're looking for that, they remember a Tiffany, a Roberta, a Greg, a Rod. They remember those people, a Felicia. They remember who you are because your core spoke to the needs of that agency.
You know, we're seeing more and more questions pop in the box there.
I see.
I know some Canva. I recently learned how to use Canva. That is a great tool. So
I love Canva.
And somebody's asking about, using, you're talking about core competencies here. What about individuals who put in, if they're partnering with somebody who's in an unrelated field? What's your thoughts on that? I'll give my thoughts after. What's your thoughts?
If someone who's in a total unrelated field, well, I think it's good because sometimes people can win contracts or be given a contract for what you do just because they've performed well in the government market. And so it's important that you share with them what you do because you might become their partner.
And I think it's even more important to do that whenever you don't have, if you have have a lot of references. I've been around for a while. You can see I've been doing this for 30 years. I've won some 400 contracts across the United States. You have to summarize that in one page. There, you want to be very specific to the ones that you're pursuing. But when you're first starting, you really want to make sure you have a lot of information there as well, you know, and even if it is a little bit different, but always try to spin it back just a little bit. That's my advice.
Your company data. It should be brief but direct. Who are you? Actually, your company data. What year was you founded? What are the things in your company data? Is it a legacy business? Has it been around for 3 generations? The size of the revenue sometimes is important. Are you in warehouses or locations? Or, you know, if you're doing shipping business, we are 100,000 square foot business that houses blah, 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 blah. What is your company data? What does it speak to? And who does, you know, who gets to, how do you create that history? And, you know, how many years you've been founded? That's your company data, who you are.
You know, one thing I do, yeah, whenever I use my capability statement, if I'm making a pitch, and you and I have done some pitch sessions together and some evaluations of those, I usually take that capability statement and I lay it in front of the individuals in the room as a sort of as a placeholder. And then we'll have a lot of this detail in there. That way I don't have to, you know, if I'm only going to get 10 minutes or 5 minutes to talk, I don't have to focus so much on that. I can just tell them, hey, look there's all my information, but let's talk about this particular project. And it's helpful to add that as a tool. In addition, because you become interactive there, when you list somebody's name and their details, if you can link back to their LinkedIn page or the other places, make it as interactive as possible. Even a simple video introducing yourself so that that individual can do that. And for goodness sakes, always remember to use secure hyperlinks. Nowadays, that's so important. Governments will not be able to pop through if it's not secure.
Absolutely. What's your corporate expertise and differentiators? Oftentimes people tend to forget what they learned before they went into business for themselves. Don't discount or discredit, you know, if you were an executive assistant and you're looking to staff laymen, make sure that you put those things in there. All of your experience can be counted for. So why do you stand out? Who are you next to C. Harper Enterprises? Say we create capability statements so that the other ladies' companies, but how she presented what she said in the chat, it made me speak to her because I could tell she understood exactly this market, woman-owned certified, WBE, graphics, and she listed her certifications. It's important that you require the right designations once you get going that will make you stand out, that will bring an alignment to you when you are competing, because it is a competitive market, guys. That's exactly what it is. It is a competitive market.
And
so
you'll
please.
Often, yeah. One thing, I bet the number one question that you'll get when you're trying to win a contract is, what makes you different?
What makes you different?
What makes your company different? So being prepared and to answer that question is so important. And speaking to that right away on your capability statement just puts you ahead of the game up front. Still letting people in the room.
All right. Let's talk about clients and customers. So your past performance is based upon your clients and your customers. Who were they? If your client and your customer was C. Harper Enterprises, it doesn't matter that I wasn't Coca-Cola or I wasn't IBM or some major government agency. Who are your clients and your customers? Why are they important for you to list? Because it means that you provided services to someone. Though that list is very, very important. Make sure you put down who they were, what you did for them, how long did you do it? Those things on your capability statement makes a major difference.
You know, Nate has a question here, Cynthia. He says he has an unofficial partner, a non-dilutive, subcontracting and engineering whose small business is in another state. How do you suggest I frame that in the capability statement? Now, framing just in general partnerships. Do you have any comment on that?
So his question was, how does he frame that? What was his question? I'm sorry.
It's somebody who's it's a subcontractor he's working with in another business in another state, but it's not a dilutive part of his business. How does he bring that individual in?
Oh, he has an unofficial partner. One of the things that he can do is he can list that he provided services, to this small business and just listed that you provided big services for a small business. All the government wants to know is that you can perform and execute what they need done. That's all they need. They're not, and let me tell you all, they're not experts. Trust me on this. They don't know everything about the business that you do. All they know is what the bid is and how they have to fulfill the bid.
You're 100% correct on that. You know, and I'm a big believer in keeping it simple and whenever you respond and never be creative. So even on your document here, don't bring in things that are unnecessary. Anything that can complicate the issue, anything that doesn't sell you. If that sells you, if that's the type of engineering that specializes in what you do, put it in there. If it doesn't, if it takes away from your capabilities, then skip it. And somebody else is asking, Betty's asking again here about customers that won't let them advertise what we have done with them, especially healthcare clients. We cannot name their names and contacts publicly. How should they recommend? How would you recommend they address that?
Well, I would list the services that I provided, but not the name. I mean, just you have to put private client and just list the services that you provided.
Yeah, and I would venture to say that the individuals that will be reading that capability statement will understand that, and they're not going to expect you to. And in fact, that might hinder you. It may go against you if you did list something. So keep it generic, keep it in general, and speak. You can even speak to it. We maintain privacy. This information can be provided, you know, at a later time or something like that. I wouldn't leave it unaddressed. I would address it but put something in there. Exactly. And I think that's the end of our slides as we go into the discussion. And I will drop that slideshow and back to our. I'll just give some examples that we have here that you've worked on. And here's a QR code that somebody's put together for us, but you can do that, and that connects us directly with Cynthia. And Dr. Harper helps our clients with preparation of these documents. But here's some samples, and I think imaging and presentation and clarity. All I always teach the 3 8 of technical writing. Always be closing. No, it's accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Keeping information brief, to the point, and always when you work with government, accurate. You don't want them to find anything that's not accurate there. And making sure that you put your email address. I think you and I talk about email address. I want you to share with them while I show some others.
Sure. I mean, one of the things about the email address, well, actually, when you create your website, because you will need a website for the government, they will generally offer you an email address. Please take that, because we don't want you to have emails like saying cutiepie@gmail.com, hot brother, or sexy mama at Gmail. Things of that nature are very unprofessional. And trust me, people will do that. It's not cute, it's unprofessional. So your email address must be, and if you should change locations, please change that information on your capability statement.
I'm seeing some of them laugh because they're on the camera here. That people do it all the time. They do it all the time.
They do it all the time. Hey guys, collaborate, work together. Look in the notes here. I'm gonna have to run here, but I want you all to know that, and these are some of the things that we've created with Gov Directions. You can create these, work together, team, partner, whatever you do. Don't be competition, but be co-opetition. Work together to win these contracts so that eventually you will become the primes and not always just the sub.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us today, Cynthia. If you want to type in your contact info one more time, they can get in touch with you directly if they like, or they can contact us at Gov Directions. You can ask myself or Dale or whoever answers the call today, but we're here and able to help you. This recording will be available to you at our YouTube channel. You can just search at Gov Directions or link directly through at Gov Directions in your member account. As you go to member home, you're able to go in, and at the bottom, you're able to see Gov School and some of the classes that we offer. And here's our YouTube live and recordings. And this is where it will be located at. In just a few, it takes us about 30 minutes to compress it and get it up online there. There are some prior ones there. This is one of our favorite sessions, but I want to thank you again, Cynthia, and have a great afternoon.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.